Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Yeah. Got another one, Jack. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the GSMC television podcast. We're part of the mighty GSMC podcast network, and I'm your slowly and very cautiously coming out of quarantine host, Howard Fletcher. And I'm here as always with my trusted engineer, Jack the Black Pug. And we are extremely thrilled and happy to be here with you once again. So if you're a return listener, thank you for joining us. You are truly the reason I am here. And if you're new to the show, that means you're a first timer. Welcome. We like to have fun around here, so I want you to just relax and just go with the flow. We hope that you have fun too. We want you to keep coming back. That's what this thing is all about. And we have a jam-packed show for you today. The Peacock is starting to load up its plumage with a little bit more color. The Mouse House, yeah, they've made a few new additions. The Good Fight, still answering the bell. I've got some more CW news. Yes, I do. I know it's hard to believe. I know, right? And I will be recapping episode 2 of Billions, season 5. I am going to do both Billions and Creepshow. So obviously on alternate episodes. This episode is a Billions episode. And as always, I will hit you up with breaking news, which, as a matter of fact, I have right now some breaking news. Korean pop sensation BTS, yes, it's BTS again, has announced that it will perform a live streamed concert next month. The move will allow the 7-piece boy band to reconnect with its legion of fans worldwide, referred to as the band's army. Okay? So, at a time when coronavirus has us all locked down and there's a lot of travel restrictions and they're keeping people at home, socially distanced, and away from BTS concerts, they want to give you something that you could, enjoy your time at home. Now, contact-free communication, this is new info to me. I don't know, there's no reason for me to know this anyway. Contact-free communication is referred to as untact instead of contact in contemporary Korean usage. So instead of having contact, we're going to be untact. I'll use that sometime in the future. You can bet on it. The band said that it's Bang Bang Con the Live. Wow. Okay. All right, here we go. The band said, this is just a wild name. The band said that it's Bang Bang Con the Live concert will be held on June 14th at 6 p.m. Korean time. And that's 5 a.m. for the fans in New York. And that would be the fans here where I am in D.C. And 2 a.m. for those on the West Coast. The band said that the paid-for concert will run for approximately 90 minutes and be followed with other content. Details will be updated in the coming weeks. So on June 14th, you kids out there, get ready to get up at 5 a.m. Now, the ones on the West Coast, they'll probably stay up from the night before for 2 a.m. But it depends what your lifestyle is, I guess. But you got that coming. BTS has previously garnered an enthusiastic response from its fan army with an online streaming concert weekend, which consisted of recordings of footage from past live concerts and fan meeting events. That amassed, listen to this, 50.6 million views in total, and it claimed 2.24 million viewers that watched it live. So they know what they're doing. I think they'll get more than 2.24 million viewers this time around, especially since they're going to have literally a captive audience. more breaking news from our folks at Netflix. Now, see, Netflix, I talk about Netflix a lot on the show because I think they are, and it's just not my opinion, it's just almost obvious, they are the trailblazers and on the cutting edge of streaming. Now, there's some people that do some things better, and I do think, as I've said before, HBO Max is going to give them some competition in some areas that they haven't had to deal with. But one place where they lead is in the international market. Netflix, back in the snail mail order DVD days, yes, kids, Netflix started out as an online company where you could order for, you could rent DVDs of movies, and they had a great international library. So let me get back to the story. Netflix has bought the rights to a Polish feature called The Hater, which won Best International Narrative Feature at this year's Tribeca Film Festival. The film will be available worldwide, excluding Poland, in July. Polish subscribers will have access to the film, quote, as soon as the licensing window allows, which is planned for March 2021. Man, always on the domestic front, you know what I mean? That's like, when they can release some of our films overseas before we can see them because they have to work out that licensing. People got to get broken off correctly. And that's according to a Netflix spokesman. Now, the film's directed by Jan Komasa, and he was nominated for an Oscar for a film named Corpus Christi, I do believe. And this particular film, The Hater, portrays a society grappling with its communist past and European present. It follows disgraced law student, Tomek, who is trying to get the attention of childhood friend Gabby, always a woman, and the respect of his progressive family, when he takes a job at a high-profile but morally bankrupt PR company. I want to... Every PR company in the movies, I'm not saying every PR company in the real world, and I can say this with about 99% confidence, every PR firm that is portrayed in movies is high-profile and morally bankrupt. It's just the way it is. You know what I mean? It's just like the clubs in the movies. In all the clubs in the movies, people are having sex in the stalls and doing drugs. Just that's a rule. Okay, so you have a PR company, it's got to be morally bankrupt and high profile. Anyway, let me get back to this. So he did this to impress Gabby. Tomek finds he excels at the political games he is asked to orchestrate on social media, though it comes at a high price. So, sounds like an interesting movie. It's not a new theme. Sounds much like the dilemma faced by Bud Fox in Oliver Stone's movie Wall Street. Do you compromise who you are, your morals, because you're living this high roller lifestyle, or do you do the right thing? It's probably pretty good though, because Corpus Christi, which was a film I believe I saw on Netflix, because it was made in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, but it was rather dark, but it was well made. That's one thing for sure. So I wanted to mention that because that's what's coming from Netflix, and Netflix is always looking to add interesting content, new content, which is, even though they didn't produce this movie, it is original content. And so, and that's going to be a theme somewhat in this episode, because there's some other networks that are on the horizon, the Peacock, HBO Max, and Disney Plus, even though they've been out there already, that need to beef up their original content offering. And they're starting to do that. So next, I'm going to talk about the Peacock, some of the original programming that supposedly they're putting together. They put out a press release the other day. I'm going to go over that, let you know what you can look forward to with the Peacock. We have to take a little break here to pay the bills. In the meanwhile, go get yourself a snack, get yourself a stiff drink, and I'll be right back. Thanks for listening. It's going to be a good show today. Be right back.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you, So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Pizza come yet? Oh, man. Dude, I'm hungry. You hungry, Jack? I know you are. All right. We're going to talk about the Peacock right now. You know, I go on and on about how these streamers have to have original content. Well, NBC Universal has now answered the question of which originals will be available upon its July 15 launch. And heading the list is a series adaptation of Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. That was the novel in high school that I chose to read just the Cliff Notes for, which I will never do. Well, I never did ever again. However, I never did go back and read Brave New World either, so I have not read the novel, I'm ashamed to say. Obviously, classic novel, and let's see if the series lives up to it. In addition, subscribers to the new service will be able to watch the first seasons of international thriller The Capture, David Schwimmer's new comedy called Intelligence, sports documentary In Deep with Ryan Lochte, I have a lot to say about that, and a film called Psych 2 Lassie Come Home. And that flick is a feature-length movie of the USA Network series Psych. So it's, you know, it's like they took the characters in Psych and they all came together. They put the band back together and they made this movie. So never watched Psych. Well, I won't say that. It was one of those things that I have been in situations when it was on television, so I've seen bits and pieces of it. I know it had a great run on USA. So fans of the show, you have that to look forward to. Now, this is from the press release. The Peacock is hoping these originals will complement its substantial library of past programming, which will include classic series like Parks and Recreation, 30 Rock, Cheers, Frasier, Battlestar Galactica, and Friday Night Lights. Well, I will just say they're hoping that they'll complement. They better, because although people will tune in, especially I don't know if it's people are going to subscribe to the Peacock to get Battlestar Galactica or Cheers or any of those things, but they'll love to see them. They'd like to have access, but it's going to be original content that's going to make people put their money down. And those of you who have heard my show before know that that's my mantra. You got to have original content. So I'm going to go over just a few of the things that you can look forward to in the Peacock in these different categories. And in the category of drama, I already mentioned it. Brave New World is based on the groundbreaking novel. It imagines a utopian society that has achieved peace and stability through the prohibition of monogamy, privacy, money, family, and history itself. Looks like you can't do much of anything except for listen to podcasts. As citizens of New London, Bernard Marx and Lenina Crown embark on a vacation to the Savage Lands, where they become embroiled, I love that word, embroiled, in a harrowing and violent rebellion. Bernard and Lenina are rescued by John the Savage, who escapes with them back to New London. John's arrival in the New World soon threatens to disrupt the utopian harmony, leaving Bernard and Lenina to grapple with the repercussions. I like the words grapple and embroiled, so I might watch the show. The other original drama show is called The Capture, and it's a conspiracy thriller that looks at the troubling world of fake news and the extraordinary capabilities of the intelligence services. When soldier Sean Emery's conviction for murder in Afghanistan is overturned due to flawed video evidence, he returns to life as a free man with his younger daughter. But when damning CCTV footage from the night out in London comes to light, Sean's life takes a shocking turn as he must fight for his freedom once again. Sounds like he's trying to avoid capture in Capture. The Peacock is going to be bringing you 2 new comedy offerings. The first is Intelligence. I mentioned it before. That's the one that David Schwimmer is attached to. Intelligence is a workplace comedy set in the UK's government communications headquarters. In the release, it's described as a kind of weedier, geekier, more bureaucratic version of MI5 and MI6, where they tackle international and domestic cybercrime from a desktop. Exactly. That is just like hilarious. I'm sure the writing will save it. Psych 2, Lassie Come Home. Santa Barbara Police Chief Carlton Lassiter is ambushed on the job and left for dead. Damn, these comedies sound grim. In a vintage Psych-style Hitchcockian nod, he begins to see impossible happenings around the recovery clinic. Sean and Gus, those are the characters from the series Psych, return to Lassie's side in Santa Barbara and are forced to navigate the personal, the professional, and possibly the supernatural. You like that one a little better? Okay, all right. Now they have some sports offerings. Here's the one that I wanted to talk about. In Deep with Ryan Lochte. At the 2016 Rio Olympics, Ryan Lochte was at the center of a scandal that has since overshadowed a decorated swimming career that includes 12 Olympic medals. Now a 35-year-old husband and father of 2 young children, Lochte is hoping for one more chance to make Team USA and prove that he's not the same man he was 4 years ago. Now look, we all make mistakes. I've made plenty of them myself, so I don't want to throw stones at Ryan Lochte for making mistakes. What I want to know is, why should I care about Ryan Lochte doing this? And why does Ryan Lochte get a show to, quote, prove he's not the same man he was 4 years ago? I'm just saying, just go out and do what you're supposed to do and people will forgive you. But I don't need to see a show about this. So those of you guys who are Ryan Lochte fans, excuse me, I'm sure some people are going to watch this show. It got pitched. They did their research and they're going to produce it. I guess they have produced some of it because it's going to be launching on July 15th. But I don't know why it's a show. I just don't think we need to see In Deep with Ryan Lochte. We need to see Ryan Lochte, if he makes the Olympic team, swim for the United States swimming team. That's it. We get the up close and personal in the Olympic broadcast. Now, NBC is going to be carrying the Olympics, so I know they are hoping that this is going to be something that'll pique your interest and get you to watch the Olympics. But I don't know if they want to, tie their sled up to the Ryan Lochte dog team. I just do not know if this is the right move, and I don't understand. It's on there. The other sports offering is going to be called Lost Speedways. It's created by Dale Earnhardt Jr. I'm not a NASCAR fan, but I do like Dale Earnhardt Jr. because he follows the Washington football team, and that's the football team of my... I'm from D.C. That's the football team that I like, so good for Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Earnhardt Jr. and co-host Matthew Dillner tell the stories of speedways that have been forgotten, abandoned, and overtaken by nature. Racing legends join as guests throughout the series. Now that I would watch because I like history and I think that would be very interesting. I don't need to waste 60 minutes with Ryan Lochte. I will never get back in my life. The Peacock also has some offerings for children. One is a Curious George series. Everyone's familiar with Curious George, the little monkey animated children's books that were created by Margaret and H.A. Ray, I think back in 1941. Curious George remains one of the most beloved children's classics of all time. I used to like The Man in the Yellow Hat. The series is going to focus on education. It incorporates early concepts in math, science, technology, and engineering, and encourages children to use their imagination and expand their own investigations of the world. I think this sounds like a really good one. Unlike the next one I'm going to talk about, DreamWorks' Cleopatra in Space.
Oh, hell no!
Cleopatra in Space is a comedic adventure focusing on the untold story of Cleopatra's teenage years. Viewers can follow Cleo as she is transported 30,000 years in the future to an Egyptian-themed planet that is ruled by talking cats, where she discovers she is the prophesized savior of the world.
Oh, hell no!
Okay, on one hand, we have Curious George, who's going to be teaching kids legitimate, at least what it sounds like, legitimate concepts that they can use in life. And then you have this thing that once again, is going to incorrectly mythologize Cleopatra into some ridiculous story about how she goes into the future and is going to be like ruling this cat planet. What in the world? Why does it have to be Cleopatra? Why? That's one question I would have for the suits.
Oh, hell no!
Look, Cleopatra has been misunderstood for centuries by the Western world, and this isn't going to help. I just don't understand why they keep doing this. Look, DreamWorks, if you want to make a Cleopatra animated series, at least have some historical basis and teach some kids something they can use, and not make this great queen of Egypt this ruler of a cat planet. It's just ridiculous. I don't think you would do this to Elizabeth I. Okay? I don't think you're going to have Queen Elizabeth I go as a child up to the cat planet. So don't do it to Cleopatra. Okay? That's all I'm going to say about that. And that's it for the Peacock. Once again, Howard goes on a rant. Listen, I look forward to this new over-the-top competition, and I look forward to this original content. But let's not, as a society, keep making the same mistakes we've been making for years when we decide to take history and play around with it, because it just doesn't help. It really doesn't. Now I'm going to get off my soapbox. I'm going to let you go get a refill. I'm going to probably have to go get a refill. Then next, I'm going to talk about the return of Percy Jackson. You don't want to miss that.
Oh, hell no!
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching.
Hey!
The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, I'm back. I had a couple pops. Feel a lot better now. I won't go off about Cleopatra anymore today. Even though I do a TV podcast, I do like to read. Although I'm often telling you about stuff that I haven't read. And there's a lot out there and I haven't read everything. And this is something else I haven't read. Although, to be honest, when it came out, I wasn't the target audience. The Percy Jackson books written by Rick Riordan came out, I think, in the early 2000s. And it's a fantasy series. I would say that's targeted to young adults, teens, young adults. Although I have a lot of friends who are in there, who all ages. I'll put it that way, all ages who read fantasy. So I don't want to pigeonhole anybody, but I'm not that guy. So I don't feel bad about telling you I didn't read these books. Very popular though, and I know that Rick Riordan is an excellent writer. A Percy Jackson series is currently in the stages of development at Disney+. Rick Riordan, who I just mentioned, he made an announcement yesterday. I'm recording this on a Friday, yesterday, in a video on Twitter, alongside his wife, Becky. Rick then followed up with a statement which reads in part, quote, "We can't say much more at this stage, but we are very excited about the idea of a live-action series of the highest quality, following the storyline of the original Percy Jackson 5-book series, starting with The Lightning Thief in Season 1. Rest assured that Becky and I will be involved in person in every aspect of the show," end quote. Why am I bringing this up? Because well, I'm going to say it again. This is original content, and I find it very interesting that Disney Plus not only got Rick Riordan to license these stories and allow them to produce this series. I'm sure it was quite lucrative, but they also gave him what sounds like creative control, which is good. It's always good when the author can say, I'm backing this, I'm involved in this. And so Disney, they are trying to come on with some, original content. My original criticism of them was that they didn't have a lot of original content other than The Mandalorian. They are quickly filling that gap. They also released another statement along with it. It was a press release statement from Disney. It says, Percy Jackson is the protagonist of Percy Jackson and the Olympians book series. As the series begins, Percy discovers that he is in fact a demigod, the son of a human mother and the Greek god Poseidon. So, talk about some good genes. Percy seems like he was born well on third base. In addition to The Lightning Thief, the series is comprised of the books The Sea of Monsters, The Titan's Curse, The Battle of the Labyrinth, and The Last Olympian. Riordan has also published a companion book, The Demigod Files, as well as The Demigod Diaries. So it sounds like Disney has a lot of material to work from. This seems like a really good investment. If it's popular, which it probably will be, I will be interested to see how they handle this one. Because HBO has set the bar high for prestige, well-produced television. And this seems like the type of material that could be really done well. Now, they may not have to go to Game of Thrones length, but Disney does have the capital. They do have the special effects, the wherewithal to make this something that I might even watch, because I probably wouldn't watch it unless there was some type of spectacular value to it. The plot probably isn't adult enough for me to want to really, dive in like I did on Game of Thrones. But if it's something that's you can't see anywhere else, I might do that. So Kudos to Disney. And here is some more breaking news. The Good Fight. It still has some punches left to throw. CBS All Access, which I said last episode is actually going to be changing its name and its look within the next 6 months, has renewed the drama for season 5, while also conceding that the current season will have to be curtailed to only 7 episodes due to shutdowns caused by COVID-19. The 7th and now final episode of season 4 will debut on the service on May 28th. Season 4 was originally slated to last 10 episodes, but the abrupt pandemic-related halt in mid-March has forced showrunners Michael and Michelle King to rethink their plans. Quote, "It's been weird not to be able to finish the 4th season," said the Kings. "It left the story in an even more absurd place than usual. So we're thrilled that CBS All Access wants to bring The Good Fight back for an additional season, and we know what story we're planning to tell. It's like getting the answers to the SAT ahead of time." Now, I haven't watched one episode of The Good Fight, and I never even watched The Good Wife, which The Good Fight was a spinoff of. But they describe it here, so I'm going to let you all know what to expect in season 4. Because season 4 of The Good Fight finds the central law firm, Reddick, Bozeman, and Lockhart, navigating a very different landscape. After they lost their biggest client, Chum Hum, I have no idea what Chum Hum does, and their founding partner's name was tarnished, Reddick, Bozeman, and Lockhart was forced to accept an offer by a huge multinational law firm, STR Laurie, to become a small subsidiary. Say that fast. Suddenly, all their decisions can be second-guessed by the giant firm that is literally on top of them.
Oh, hell!
While STR Laurie initially seemed like benevolent overlords, we find Diane Lockhart, and that's Christine Baranski's character. She's the star of the show, and her colleagues chafing at their loss of independence while simultaneously investigating the emergence of a mysterious memo 618. Okay. Well, I don't know what memo 618 says. It's mysterious. But I know people who have law firms and who are partners at law firms. And trust me, anybody would be upset putting in that work to become partner just to suddenly be low man on the totem pole again or have to answer to someone on top of you.
Oh, hell!
In addition to Baranski, The Good Fight stars Cush Jumbo. Now, I had to look that up because I don't watch the show, had never heard of Cush Jumbo, and I thought that Cush Jumbo might be a man, first thing, and it sounds like the name of a wrestler, to be quite honest with you, but it's actually a very attractive British actress. So I'm not trying to clown her name, it just, when you hear Cush Jumbo, that's the first thing that comes to mind. In this corner, at 350 pounds, Cush Jumbo. Also stars Sarah Steele, Nyambi. Oh, come on. You have to have like a weird name, but Sarah Steele's pretty plain. Michael Boatman, that's pretty plain. Zach Greiner, well, that's a 50-50. John Larroquette, haven't seen him in a while. Audra McDonald, brilliant actress. And Delroy Lindo, excellent actor. Hugh Dancy also joined season 4 in a recurring role. Well, they have a very nice lineup of actors. I like all of them. I liked Hugh Dancy in Hannibal. I don't know if any of you watched Hannibal, but that's one you should stream if you can. The Good Fight remains one of the most beloved and critically acclaimed original series on CBS All Access. And we've seen a tremendous response from fans this season, said Julie McNamara, Executive Vice President and Head of Programming at All Access. While we all had hoped to provide audiences with a 10-episode 4th season, we, among others, have had to adapt to the pandemic. Although it's a shortened season, the incredible cast and crew, helmed by the incomparable Robert and Michelle King, have produced a phenomenal 7 episodes. We can't wait for viewers to see the remainder of the season and are excited to bring subscribers even more of the timely, gripping storylines the Kings bring to life next in season 5. And there you have it, The Good Fight. Shorten their season. That's the way they adapted to it. Interesting to see all the ways people are adapting to these shutdowns. Some are, pushing their seasons back and splitting them up, but they decided to go at it a different way. CBS All Access is trying to beef up their lineup. There's some news I'm going to share with you later on in the show about another show that they're creating. They are trying to beef up that original content. Everyone is. You cannot be slipping right now because there's way too much competition out there. And again, HBO Max is like coming on like a great white with a dorsal fin just cresting the water. And you better stay in front of it because if not, you're going to be ripped to smithereens. And that's what CBS All Access knows. And they seem to be trying to stay ahead of it. So all props to them. It's interesting to see how this thing is going to shake out. Next, I got some breaking news for you about the Screen Actors Guild, some more about my friends at the CW. So go take a bathroom break or whatever. Go get some refreshments. We have to go pay bills. And I'll talk to you soon. Be right back.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right. All refreshed? Good. Well, here we go with some more breaking news. The CW will not be debuting any new original scripted shows this fall, the fall of 2020. Yeah, I know. Disappointing, huh? Due to the ongoing coronavirus-related production shutdown, the network is holding nearly all of its original scripted fare for January 2021. In announcing its 2020-2021 schedule on Wednesday, however, the network did say that it was going to air the season or series finale of Supernatural this fall. The show was due to wrap up this past spring after a 15-season run, that's laudable. That's pretty cool. I never watched a minute of it, but that's pretty awesome to be on for 15 seasons. But the final episodes were unable to complete filming before production was shut down by the pandemic. The CW will instead air a number of acquired shows and unscripted shows this fall. Some of these I've talked about in other episodes. I'm still going to repeat them for those who are new to the show or didn't listen to my blathering for the whole episode last time. In addition to shows like Masters of Illusion, Whose Line Is It Anyway? That's a show that won't ever die. Seems it's like, one of the zombie shows, The Undead. Penn and Teller, Fool Us, and World's Funniest Animals. The network announced earlier this week that it had acquired the shows Swamp Thing. That was one that I talked about that they got from the DC Universe. Tell Me a Story, Coroner, and Dead Pixels, all of which will run this fall. The CW will also air the summer show Pandora, along with previously acquired shows The Outpost and 2-sentence horror stories as part of its fall lineup. I'm looking forward to 2-sentence horror stories. As you know, I like anthology horror. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing Creepshow this season. We'll be talking about that next episode. But I'm just hoping 2-second horror stories is better than Creepshow so far. Now, hopefully, Creepshow comes, it finishes with a bang, and I'll be raving about it. But I'm not holding my breath about that one so far. Here is some more breaking news. The official film rules this year for the Screen Actors Guild Awards won't be announced until next month. But an email sent to the studios on Thursday morning says that the organization will be following the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences temporary eligibility change for the Oscars.
Huh?
There's a quote. We are still revising our film release criteria, but will be following the Academy's rule change to allow titles with planned theatrical release to be eligible if streamed or released on VOD first, the email reads. full language will be announced in June along with the rest of our rules. Now, the Academy announced on April 28th, and I mentioned it here on the show, that its Board of Governors approved a temporary hold on the requirement that a film needs a 7-day theatrical run in a commercial theater in Los Angeles County to qualify for the Oscars. Why am I talking about this on this podcast? Well, just like the straight to VOD, video on demand release that some are saying is just something they're doing because of the coronavirus situation, I don't believe that is going to be the case. I think they're finding that it's going to be kind of successful to do it that way and that things aren't going to change back to normal so rapidly. So I tend to believe that there are going to be some very loose criteria for filmmakers to be able to be considered in the, for the Academy Awards, the Golden Globe Awards, for the Screen Actors Guild Awards, when before it was mandatory that they run in a theater for a certain number of days and in certain markets, that straight to DVD, listen to me. that dated me, didn't it? That straight to video on demand work is going to be able to be considered for Best Picture, for instance, or Best Actor or Best Director, rather than having it run in a theater. So under these new rules by the Academy, films will be allowed to be released digitally without playing in theaters, as I said. However, the streamed film must have already had planned to be a theatrical release in order to be eligible for the Oscar race. So an example of that is Trolls World Tour, which I talk about on this show way too much. But also, let's go with a film that just opened this weekend. The Tom Hardy movie, Capone, was supposed to be released in the theaters. They held it back for as long as they felt they should, and it went straight to video on demand this weekend. Now, according to the reviews, I haven't seen the film, but according to the reviews, I don't think they're going to have to worry about being nominated for an Oscar or any other awards consideration. But if the critics are wrong and I've been misinformed, that show, in those categories, like Best Picture, Best Score, Best Actor, Best Actress, etc., Capone could be nominated for every one of them because it had already had a date to go into the theater. I tend to believe that those rules, again, are going to start to erode, but we will see. The film also has to be made available to the Academy Screening Room. They have a members-only streaming site. And the rule says they have to get it within 60 days of the film's streaming or video on demand release. But I don't know if that means 60 days before or 60 days after. I'm assuming maybe 60 days after. Now here's a quote I found in, guess where, Variety. Quote, the Screen Actors Guild Awards nominating committee will be finalized in early July. The one-page memo reads, this is the memo that they send out to all the people like Variety who cover them. They don't send me a memo. It goes on, in light of the pandemic, in-person events are suspended until further notice. As we move to primarily virtual events and digital screeners, though limited mailings are still permitted, meaning you can still snail mail them a DVD if you'd like, but it says limited mailings, so I guess that's the hint. Don't do it this way if you want to really be considered. We have developed new rules and a new fee structure around the 4-year consideration campaigns geared toward our members. The memo continues. Again, the memo that I did not get. The pandemic is an evolving situation, and as things change, we will evolve with it and keep you informed on any updates to our guidelines and rules throughout the summer and fall. All the digital screening platforms and streaming sites must be approved by the Screen Actors Guild Awards, of course. So, why am I bringing this up again? Like I said, I think that this is going to start being more normal. I hate to use the new norm all the time, but I just think that pretty soon things that are streamed are going to be considered just like you put it in the theater. I really do. And finally, last but not least, some breaking news from CBS. CBS revealed Friday that it had given a series order to Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Scott.
A new show that will take place on the Starship Enterprise in the years prior to James T. Kirk coming aboard as captain. The new show is set, like other recent Star Trek spin-offs, to stream on CBS All Access. And that was their big lure, the new Star Trek show for people when they first came on the scene. But it will, according to co-creator and executive producer Akiva Goldsman, hew more closely to the original Kirk-era Star Trek, yay, in structure and tone, than those other recent additions that the franchise has had. Yes, we are all ready for that. Thank you very much. We're going to try to harken back to some classical Trek values to be optimistic and to be more episodic, Goldman told The Hollywood Reporter and Variety. Obviously, we will take advantage of the serialized nature of character and story building, but I think our plots will be more closed-ended than you've seen in earlier Discovery or Picard. So, again, all I can say, fine job, way to go, Star Trek. I appreciate that. I do like more episodic television for something like Star Trek, but unless somebody really raves about this, I probably won't be moved to get CBS All Access. But if I had CBS All Access already, I would be thrilled this was happening. So that's all the breaking news I have right now. I'm recording this on a Saturday. I know some stuff is going to happen tonight, so I'm going to leave that next segment open for the next big story that comes out. It probably will be the commencement address that Barack Obama is going to be giving that's going to supposedly pull 1 billion people worldwide. I would imagine our current POTUS is not going to be thrilled about that. And then after that, we're going to go over episode 2, season 5 of Billions. I'll be right back. Go get some pizza. Talk to you soon.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Kirk out.
Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. Together we dive into the world of sci-fi and science fiction. From episodes of Star Trek, Star Wars, to The Walking Dead, Resident Evil, all the hot new science fiction movies from the backdoors of Marvel or DC. The Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. You'll never look at science fiction the same way again.
All right. I mean, that Frosted Flakes. They good, Jack? You like them? All right. All right, we're back. And last segment, I talked about Star Trek and this Strange New Worlds show that's coming up. They're going to start on CBS All Access. And since that time, they've come out with another press release or an updated press release that talks about some details, so I'm going to review it really quickly for you guys. So here's some breaking news with that. CBS All Access, they're going to bring back some fan favorite characters, again for their new Star Trek series. The streaming service has given a series order to Star Trek Strange New Worlds, as I told you. It's going to be starring Anson Mount. I'm not familiar with Anson Mount, only Anson Williams, who was Potsy. Anson Mount is going to play Captain Christopher Pike.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Last time I saw Christopher Pike, he was burnt up in a mechanical wheelchair.
Kirk out.
But I guess this was his younger days before that happened. Rebecca Romaine, the beautiful Rebecca Romaine, is going to be number 1 every time. She could have been 7 of 9 back in the day. I think she had the right qualifications for that. And Ethan Peck is going to star as Science Officer Spock, and that is going to be Mr. Spock, First Officer Spock in his younger days. The series will follow Pike Spock at number 1 in a decade before Captain Kirk boarded the USS Enterprise as they explore strange new worlds around the galaxy. The trio of characters were first introduced into a revamped CBS Star Trek universe in season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, which, as I've said on the show, I've only seen the first episode of the first season. Star Trek Discovery gets good reviews. People I know who watch the show seem to like it. And so I didn't realize that they had introduced these characters. I guess Discovery is a prequel of sorts. I don't know. You guys tweet me and let me know. All three received praise for their performances, with fans quickly clamoring for a spinoff. And I'm sure that was the plan. They were also featured in Season 2 of Star Trek Shorts.
Very good, thank you, Mr. Scott.
Or, excuse me, of Star Trek Short Treks.
Kirk out.
I have never heard of that show, and I do the TV podcast. I apologize. Here's a quote. Fans fell in love with Anson Mount, Rebecca Romaine, and Ethan Peck's portrayal of these iconic characters when they were first introduced on Star Trek Discovery last season, said Julie McNamara, Executive Vice President and Head of Programming at CBS All Access. This new series will be a perfect complement to the franchise, bringing a whole new perspective and series of adventures to Star Trek. All right, so add that to the information I gave you last segment, and we'll look for that. So here's some more breaking news. American Idol has been renewed for a 4th season at ABC.
Oh, hell no!
Wow, it's been 4 seasons at ABC already. Wow. The news comes just days ahead of the season 3 finale, which will air, well, actually, by the time you hear this, will have aired on the broadcast network on May 17th, which was actually last night, but I thought you all might want to know that. Among the performances scheduled for the finale, which was last night, is Luke Bryan performing his new single, One Margarita. Is there such a thing? Katy Perry performing her new single, Daisies, and Lionel Richie performing We Are the World. I guess he doesn't have a new single. Along with the fellow Idol judges, the 11 top contestants and several past American Idol winners will perform. For those of you who weren't watching, which will include myself, and for those who watched some but might need to have their memory refreshed, the top 7 that went into the finale last night were Arthur Gunn, Dylan James, Francisco Martin, Johnny West, Julia Gargano, Just Sam, and Lewis Knight. I would wish you good luck, but I guess it's already happened. Now, the show would typically end with a splashy live finale, but the coronavirus pandemic forced the storied singing competition to begin filming remote episodes for the first time in history. The judges to date in the ABC incarnation of the show have been Luke Bryan, Katy Perry, and Lionel Richie, as well as host Ryan Seacrest. There's no word yet on whether or not all 4 will return for the show's 4th season. Well, I believe Ryan Seacrest, it's his property. He took it over, I believe, so he'll be back. But as far as the others, I have no idea. Now, several other competition shows have shifted to virtual formats in the wake of this pandemic. The Voice has also been doing at-home episodes, while America's Got Talent has been accepting virtual audition tapes. Meanwhile, late-night shows like The Tonight Show have been doing virtual episodes, as has Saturday Night Live, which just had their season finale a couple of weeks ago. So while we're adapting here in the States, over in the UK, well, here's some more breaking news. And this one just came over the wire. UK broadcasters have published a document outlining industry guidelines for TV production to resume following the coronavirus shutdown. So they haven't picked a date yet, but they've written down guidelines for when everyone returns. The British stations ITV, the BBC, Sky, Channel 4, Channel 5, STV, ITN, the Association for Commercial Broadcasters and On-Demand Services, known as COBA, and PACT have joined forces on this particular document. It covers all aspects of TV and is complementary to the forthcoming British Film Commission guidance on managing the risks associated with film and high-end television drama production. That is a mouthful. The broadcasters state the number one priority remains the safety and well-being of production teams and those who work with them. It is taken into account the current government guidelines on safe return to work, but is expected to evolve over the coming months as the lockdown is eased. In summary, the guidance details 6 areas that producers, in conjunction with the commission broadcaster, must consider when planning to produce during COVID-19. And they are. So I've assigned numbers to them because you can't see the bullet points over the podcast, but they're in no particular order of significance. Number 1, specifically consider people at higher risk of harm. So we know who those are. I guess people with compromised immune systems and older people. 2, heighten precautions for everyone at work. I guess that means be careful. 3, reduce the number of people involved. 4, consider editorial on camera requirements. 5, consider mental health and well-being. Yeah. And 6, feedback loop. Not quite sure what that means. It's on the list. It also sets out suggested controls for producers to consider, including the physical capacity of the space given the requirements of social distancing, along with the provision of key hygiene facilities, good hygiene, and managing potential issues with work equipment touch points should be addressed. And the use of PPE equipment should be used as a last resort. Now, I think this was very smart for them to do, and this is why I'm bringing it up, because right now we're dealing with a shutdown in Hollywood, especially with the last stories I've just talked about, with these, programs having to do remote episodes, if episodes at all. What I think these UK broadcasters are trying to demonstrate to the government is that they're ready to take necessary steps to do things safely. And I think all industries should come out with some sort of formalized guidelines that they plan to follow in order to open. I think that will lead to things opening more quickly and also more safely. I think this was a very good strategy, and I would like to see more industries in the United States at least be proactive in doing this, especially with our upper echelon, or at least the executive wing of our federal government, pushing for us to reopen. Regardless of the science, I think that people need to have some sort of guidance on how they should conduct themselves in workplaces if they're going to be open. And the more industries can do it in a uniform manner, so it's not do it one way over here, but when you go over here, do it another way, things will be a lot better for everyone. So that's my 2 cents. I wanted to let you know about that because you'll probably hear about it coming, something like that happening over here in the States. Next, I'm going to recap last night's episode of Billions, Season 5, Episode 3. It was an interesting one. It was better than Creepshow, I'll tell you that. So go get some refreshments. I'll be right back. Those of you who haven't watched Billions, go watch it and then come back. See you soon.
I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
All right. Billions. We're back, and I'm happy to be on this segment now. I'm sorry if the last 2 were a little sketchy. Not a whole lot happened this week, folks. So I had to try to find you some news to talk about something worth talking about. So thanks for hanging in there with me. If you haven't watched the 3rd episode of Billions Season 5, please pause this, go check it out, and come back because there will be spoilers on this, and you've been warned. So last night's episode was an interesting one. I enjoyed it. And I'll get into it now. I'll just take it from there. We'll see where it goes. It's been a while since Billions checked in on Axe's kids. And that was a question I had a couple of weeks ago. We just haven't seen these kids. And in the first couple seasons, he was like, pretty cool dad. Always wanted to hang out with his boys. And then they disappeared. Ever since Axe and Laura split up, the show has been solely focused on the patriarch, Bobby Axelrod. But certainly his children are off somewhere doing something wrong, if they're his kids. I mean, they can't possibly be too well adjusted. You know what I mean? So at the beginning of this week's episode, we see Gordy Axelrod at his big money boarding school attempting to set up some sort of Bitcoin mining operation. And I don't understand the details of Bitcoin at all. I don't understand a lot about anything about cryptocurrency other than the fact that it's imaginary and you can make a lot of money doing it. Allegedly. But I digress. Gordy Axelrod is at his prestigious prep school. And doing this, setting up this crypto farm, he causes the electrical grid for the school and the surrounding area to shut down. We saw in episode 1, apparently when you set up these crypto farms, it drains a lot of energy. Why? Again, I don't know. But that little stunt gets Axe on a plane pretty quickly to go see what kind of mischief his son got into. But not before he starts throwing money and influence at a few problems of his own. Before I get into that, let me interject a question here about the show. I've asked it before, but where the heck is Laura Axelrod? I mean, we were led to believe that the character that's played by Malin Ackerman, or used to be played by Malin Ackerman, that she and Axe were like Bonnie and Clyde in high school. I mean, that they were really close. She was the only one that got him. And even though their marriage didn't last, and marriages breaking up happens all the time, but I cannot believe that their son gets himself in this hot water at this very expensive prep school that we're made to believe is the best in the country, or led to believe is the best in the country, and she's not even contacted. I mean, we don't even hear from her at all. And listen, if the show didn't want to have the actress on, if for some reason they can't work with Malin Ackerman anymore, or she doesn't want to be on the show, or whatever, or she couldn't be on the show because she had a conflict, they could have at least had some sort of fake phone call or something. They could have FaceTimed her or something, but she was not in this episode whatsoever, which just was completely contrary to the character earlier in the series. Anyway, enough of that. Back to the show. Axe was hoping to nab some paintings by this well-respected artist named Nico Tanner. Before they were officially up for grabs, we got to see this pre-show showing that apparently happens. If you're a big money person and an art collector, they like to let big money in there to look at the paintings, possibly buy them early to set the market if they're of that quality. Well, Axe has this preview showing. He wants to buy these paintings, but he finds that our friend Mike Prince, again, has had a preview showing and purchased the entire series. So once again, Prince has swept in and taken something that Axe thought was his and his alone by right. So it's time for another plan. So Axe tells his boy Wags, if you can't buy the art, buy the artist. So Axe buys a gorgeous loft with a ton of natural light and is hoping to sway Nico, the artist, into becoming a commissioned artist. Axe is willing to set him up with space, time, and money if Nico gives him exclusive rights to his next 8 paintings. This artist, Nico, is played by the great Frank Grillo, who in real life once worked on Wall Street as a trader until he turned actor. I don't know, he's probably taking acting lessons now. I don't know if he was formally trained before he became an actor, but he's become quite a character actor of sorts. He can play a New Yorker, because that's where he's from, very well. You know, he usually plays a tough guy or a cop or something like that. But in this role of the very testosterone-driven, tortured soul, purist artist, he was a perfect fit. He was he played the part well. Hope I see him more in the show. He's also trying to get his bank idea rolling. That's Axe. Axe wants to become a bank. So Hard Bob, who has been a character on the show before, and Todd Krakow, who I believe now is the Secretary of the Treasury. He has some high government position in finance. I think he's the Secretary of the Treasury now. But to make a long story short, they tell Axe it's not going to happen. You're just too dirty. Your reputation precedes you. You won't be able to get it. The federal agencies aren't going to go anywhere near you to let you be a bank. But Hard Bob suggests that he could open up a local bank where he would only have to have a state license him, and so he could probably massage the state restrictions in a way where he wouldn't be able to do it to that level with the federal agencies. And that's one thought he has, so we're going to see if Axe can somehow maybe open up a New York bank, but knowing this show, he'll probably open up the bank like in Arkansas or something like that. All right, so Axe goes to school to see his kids. Once he's at school, he does what he always does when he's confronted with a problem. He tries to buy the solution. The headmaster can't be bought, though. He's leaning toward expelling Gordy, and no amount of money will change that. So Axe sees this as an opportunity to teach Gordy a lesson about what you do when you're big and bad and have a lot of money. Of course, that lesson is that there's a certain cost when you make a big gambit, and the cost this time around is doing whatever you can to destroy the headmaster. Not exactly wholesome parenting. Axe and Wags dig deep and eventually find that the yearly $1 million donation to the athletics department has been missing $200,000. They get their Hatchet Man Hall on the case, but it doesn't prove fruitful. The headmaster hasn't been pocketing that money, but rather diverting it into a scholarship for Syrian refugees. Hardly the smoking gun they're looking for. So they go dirtier. Hall snaps pictures of the refugees living at the headmaster's home and blackmails him with the perception that they are doing yard work and helping around the house as unpaid, undocumented, illegal immigrants. That forces the headmaster not only to reinstate Gordy, but also to let Axe give a speech to the school assembly where he hits the children with the harsh realities of the real world. I thought this scene was kind of over the top. You know, not only did Axe give them some hard truths, but he used a lot of profanity. I just thought that it was a little bit over the top. I can't say that it would really necessarily happen. I don't care who you are. Now, this whole episode had the running theme not only of father and son, but of good versus evil, God versus godlessness, even, you know, epitomized by Wags, who is the most debauched person on the show, looking for his long-lost son, who he reconnects with at the end of the show, only to find that he's a born-again Christian. Axe has always been more villain than anti-hero. But there's typically been some semblance of humanity that allows us not to totally despise him. But this season, they might as well just give him a mustache and let him start twirling it, because he's just plain Dick Dastardly. There were a couple other plot points. I'm just going to touch on that. There's Taylor. She was trying to do the right thing to help a university divest its fossil fuel positions. Her second-in-command, Sarah, sees how the effort could create a potential boon for Taylor Mason, and she runs the idea by Taylor, but Taylor says no, and they find that instead of Taylor taking advantage of the new oil position, Axe Cap ends up getting that position anyway. So Sarah is furious and quits and says that Taylor is only half in on the whole thing. So it was mostly soap opera drama. I like Billions this season. It's entertaining. I'm just a little bit disappointed in the character development. It's becoming kind of one-dimensional, and it looks like they're going to just make Axe just a straight-up ass. And, you know, it works for the entertainment value. I thought it was more interesting when Axe seemed to have a backstory of a gritty guy from Brooklyn who just wanted to make it and have a good family. He just doesn't seem that anymore. He just wants to make a buck every time. So that's it. To do a proper recap, I'd probably need about 20 minutes, but I hope that filled you in. And that's it for the GSMC Television Podcast. We're part of the mighty GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you would, please email me at Podcast Howard. Let me know what you'd like to hear. I would love to give it to you. On Friday's episode, we'll recap the latest episode of Creepshow. Until then, I'm Howard Fletcher. I'm here with Jack the Engineer, the Black Pug, and we love you guys. Wash your hands. Please stay safe. Don't go too fast, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you listening. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.